Hello and welcome back to another episode of Fully Books, the Hidden Gems author podcast with Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry we're in, writing and publishing. And today we are delighted to welcome Mike Pickard, who is not just an author, but also a man who knows an awful lot about a subject I'm particularly passionate about, KDP. And I love your office background, Mike. It looks so fantastic. And your NaNoWriMo t-shirt. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing excellent now that I'm with the two of you.
Oh, what a nice thing to say. Well, of course, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
Doing great. Thanks, Roland. And thanks for joining us, Michael. So, KDP is obviously one of the most important, if not the most important, platform for self-published authors. So anytime that we can talk about it and glean some tips and tricks to share with the audience to help them, in their self-publishing journey, that's always welcome, right? So we'll get into that in a minute, but let's first hear about you and who you are and how you got started, in this writing journey of yours, and what got you into becoming an expert on sort of like the KDP ins and outs, and then we'll go from there.
Excellent. So I happened into writing fortuitous happenstance generated by a demand from my daughter when she was going to overnight camp for the first time. She said, "Daddy, please write me letters every day." And so I talked to some family and friends about the kinds of letters they wrote to their kids at camp. And I found the letters terribly boring. I didn't tell them that, but I set the bar higher for myself. So I decided that I would write letters that were chapters of a story. And the intent of the chapters was to make the protagonist so inept at camp that in comparison, she would be a star. It's not that I didn't think she would be great at camp, but if she had any trepidation, I wanted the story to kind of humorously lift her out of that feeling. And who better to be a fumble bucket at overnight camp would be an alien. And so I wrote the Gurfnick Chronicles, which were delivered to her as letters to camp for 5 years. And she shared the letters with cabin mates. And so I had this growing audience of people who were reading the story. But family and friends who were asking for copies because they knew I was doing this. And so I hooked up with a company called Ex Libris, who used to be out of Princeton, New Jersey, and has subsequently been acquired by the big print-on-demand companies in Indiana. And so the first book was published through them. All the subsequent books were published through KDP or its predecessor, because I wanted control of my work. And I looked at other companies that offered similar services, but there were things in their contracts that I just couldn't tolerate.
What sort of things, if you don't mind me asking?
So Ingram allows returns, but they charge the author for the cost of the book when a return comes in. And you can lose more money than you make.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big financial liability you take on, isn't it?
Yeah. And KDP's rules and regulations were a lot more straightforward. And in general, they've treated me very well.
That's good. I'm not sure that's how every author feels about Amazon, but it's good that some do.
I think it's such an interesting thing when you talk about print books in particular. That's a real challenge. I mean, Craig and I write romance books, and most of those get sold as ebooks. But there's nothing that makes you feel more like a writer than having an actual book in your hand. But the financial logistics of being able to provide print copies of your books nationwide is difficult.
Difficult, borderline impossible.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And so, I mean, I've been working a lot with direct sales, and it's one of those things where you have to invest quite a lot of time and money if you want to be able to do a print on demand service that plugs in with everything. And until then, you just use Amazon. And they've kind of got it sewn up.
Yeah, I find that my best success is if I find the place that lets me do an author signing, and I get to press the flesh, meet people, talk about the books, align the books to their reading desires or preferences. And if they think that the book is something they would enjoy through that process, then I've got a sale. And I'm not a bad salesman, at least in a one-to-one. Maybe through marketing online, I'm not so good, but if you put me in a room with some people, someone will walk away with a book.
I mean, that's fantastic. So, I mean, going back, I derailed it. Going back to what you said, you selected KDP because you thought that they had the best terms and services. But then, before I interrupt you, what happened next?
Well, I actually started with the company that was doing printed books that Amazon acquired. And so suddenly I was swept into KDP. So I had 3 or 4 novels, and the name of that company escapes me, and that's embarrassing. I should know that. At the time, KDP was only doing ebooks, but by absorbing this other company, they suddenly had both print and ebook, and now, as a surprise to me, audiobooks as well.
That's interesting.
Incredible. So yeah, that was a while ago. I mean, they had Create Space. Maybe that was.
It was Create Space. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they had Create Space, and then they've since merged it into KDP as well. But so going back to, I love the idea of that you wrote those letters to your daughter to. As a story. I know in my own camp experience many years ago, I don't even remember the letters that my parents sent to me. I'm sure they were the boring type that you mentioned. I know that the letters I sent back, because they always mentioned it was sort of like a what was that song a while back? Hello mother, hello father. Mine were like that. I was like, oh well, we got rats in our bunk room, and all these bad things. But I love that idea that you put this character in place that's having this hard time at camp, because I can see how that would really help a kid feel better about their own experience. So that kudos to you on that idea. So once you pull all that together, do you even sell them as ebooks as well? I guess you do. I see them on Amazon. So
well, originally the Griffith Chronicles was produced by Ex Libris, and at a family reunion, one of my wife's cousins from California bought a copy out of my trunk, and read about 100 pages and asked why Gerfnit, who was the protagonist, was chosen from all other Frobs on Frobzob to come to Earth. And I didn't have an answer, but 90,000 words later, I had a prequel. But I didn't want to go back to Ex Libris because their charges were significant, 3 figures. And I learned about print on demand that was less expensive. Although with the Griffith Chronicles and family and friends interested in the story, because I had sent it to my daughter, I came out profitable, despite the fact that Ex Libris charged me money. But I didn't want to do that again, so the prequel came out through Create Space, and I was on a roll. The feeling of receiving the first Griffith Chronicles books in a shipment. I open the box, I smell the ink, I see my name on the spine in gold. I look at my words between the front and back covers, and I got goosebumps. And I said, "This is just too good. I can't stop doing this."
Oh, well, that's a nice thing. Whenever you talk to a writer, there's no writer who doesn't share that feeling and excitement when they first see that book.
Yeah.
Well, it gave me enough momentum, so there are now 12 books out, with 3 more in process.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that everything that's moved so much towards ebooks these days, we've sort of lost, in a lot of cases, lost that sort of physical connection to paperbacks, especially in some genres more than others, right? Children's books, middle grade books, those kind of things I think are still very heavily sold physical copies, but some of the newer, like romance, I think that we always made so much more money with our ebooks that the paperbacks were almost a second thought. You just put them, but honestly, a lot of authors just put them out, create the paperback so that they can do that. They can get some physical copies just for their own sake, put them on their bookshelf, smell them, see them in print, show people. But really, that last mile is also difficult, right? With KDP, it's not really helping you get into the bookstores. So you still always have that. And self-publishers are, they want everything done for them, which is, they have to do everything themselves. So as much as they don't have to do, they want. So I think with romance, it's much easier to, or than some of the other genres, much easier to just focus on the ebooks. But it's good to see that there are some genres that are still very heavily paperback oriented.
I have some of my latest books on consignment at local bookstores. And I have dabbled with a mid-grade story, which I wrote with my grandson. And it's out there in print, and it presents very well. And when people hear that I wrote it with my grandson and I'm at a face-to-face event, there's a lot of people who will pick it up just for the backstory because they think it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a couple of people that wrote books with their kids, and that's always a rewarding experience for sure. Okay, so now, what have you learned about KDP? What are some of the tips and tricks that you've picked up over your journey?
So I stubbed my toes a lot of times. I've done this, I think, 9 or 10 times for myself and 4 times with other people. Because they didn't have the technical skill and they wanted some hand-holding. Every time I do it, I learn something else. So in the beginning, the biggest problem was a simple one, having a complete manuscript that's at the correct page size. So I print mine as a trade paperback 6x9 inch. And so people will have their books in 8.5x11 format in Microsoft Word. And as soon as we change the page size to 6x9, everything breaks. Single sentences are stranded on an otherwise empty page, and the margins are messed up. And so just getting the manuscript prepared, you would think that would be pretty trivial, but it's not. So you have to get it into the right size and shape. And then there are things that daunt every author. Are the fonts set up correctly? Is the font color? I cut and pasted something from another document, and the paragraph ended up being gray, and I didn't realize it till the book was printed, and those letters or those words faded into the background. Got to make sure all the highlighting is removed. And when you get it down to 6x9, I like to have my chapters start on the right-hand side if the book is open. And the manuscript doesn't do that for you automatically. So you may have to put in some page breaks to actually get that set up, even if it means there's a blank page.
I remember doing that. It used to drive my OCD nuts, where you would have, like, it would finish, maybe there'd be like 4 lines, and then you turn over and there'd be a blank page, and then the chapter starts there. And I was like, what do you do? Does that look bad? But I think it's the right thing to do. It's so much more enjoyable when you start a chapter on the right.
You're also, because you're an independent, and and you don't have some author at the publishing house looking out for you, doing that makes the book look more professional. It looks more like a book that went through an agent and then a publishing house. The same thing for the stuff at the beginning: title page, copyright, ISBN, acknowledgments, all the stuff that people expect to have in a book. And so that presents more professionally if that stuff is there. Speaking of ISBN, KDP is happy to give you one for free, but you can only use it with KDP. And so I have not yet done this. I have promised myself I was going to do it. But maybe when this recording is over, I will go to Bowker and buy some ISBNs. Because I've got at least, well, I have 3 books in process and at least 2 more beyond that. So if I have to buy 10, I know I'm going to use at least 5 of them. No matter how you get your ISBN, I have to edit that into the manuscript on the copyright page. So I may have thought that the document was done, but it's not, because I have to make that last minute edit. And that should be done before you take that source document and generate a PDF from it. I tried initially to upload Word documents, and that adds the vagaries of KDP's formatting into the mix. And I wouldn't know what would be on what page. And KDP likes you to have a table of contents, especially for the ebook version, so that the buyer can get to a chapter easily. Well, if you're letting them format the book, you don't know where chapter 13 is. So how are you going to create a table of contents? So I found it necessary to put in all the chapter markers, generate the table of contents, and then print the manuscript into a PDF. This is all before I've told KDP I have a book for you. It's all preliminary stuff, but if you don't do this, yep, you'll be in trouble shortly. One of the things that ought to be going on, even while you're writing or editing the book for KDP, is you ought to be worried about a cover. I used to do my own covers. I now contract for covers because they're so much more professional. The look is, it's what I want because I collaborate with the creator of the cover, but it comes off as professionally done. And so KDP provides a template for a cover, and that's great, so that you can turn to your cover creator and say, this is the template, here's the bleed area, here's where they're going to cut the cover and things are going to be cut off. Here's how close you can get to the edges. Here's where the ISBN barcode is going to go. Except that in order for KDP to generate that template, they need to know page count, because part of the cover is the spine. And so when do you learn how many 6x9 pages you have that need to go behind the cover? You only learn that after you finally print it to PDF. So you can have someone work on cover, but they're going to have to tweak the graphics pretty much at the last moment when you actually have a complete manuscript that's ready as a PDF for upload.
And I do a lot of cover design, and I've helped a lot of authors with their paperback covers. And there's one detail that always drives me nuts, is whether the paper is white or cream, because it actually changes the spine width. And therefore, if you put the spine width for a book that's printed on white paper and the author wants to print it on cream, it's going to kick it back. It's challenging.
even when you get your cover uploaded and the manuscript uploaded, and they're two separate uploads, KDP will show you a virtual copy of your book. And even at that point, they can point out errors. They can point out that the cover's the wrong size, which happened on the last two of my novels. And I had to go back to the graphics folks or manipulate the graphic myself. Because some of the novels were science fiction, KDP thought that some of my words were misspellings. They were just alien names. And I had to jump through that hoop. And I advise people that when they're looking at this virtual copy of their book, that they look at every page. It may be tedious, hundreds of pages, and at this point they're sick of the book. But they need to look at every page, if for no other reason than to confirm that chapters are on the right-hand side, if in fact they've set the book up, and that there aren't extraneous blank pages in the process of generating the PDF. Something got bumped, and so suddenly you had a blank page put in there to have a chapter start on the right, and now there's two blank pages, and the chapter starts on the left. And then you're back to the source documents, regenerating the PDF. So problems can happen even that late in the process.
Yeah, those things happen to me. I remember that blank page issue, trying to, you write your manuscript in Word or whatever in your standard format, and like you say, then you go and you pick, okay, well, I'm going to do it in 6x9 or whatever. Then you've got to do that formatting, and then even though you think it's all just automatically going to flow into there, and you have to go through, sort of click through every single page to look, because I remember there was blank pages all of a sudden throughout the book, and I had to delete those and move things around. And and like you said, you absolutely have to wait. I mean, you can get your cover designer started. Often, like if you're doing an ebook, you're going to be coming up with the cover for the ebook, which is just the front, and they can be working on that. And then at the very end, then the designer usually, at least the way I would work was, we'd figure that out, and then at the very end it'd be like, okay, here's my page count, and then they can go ahead and they can put that all into the template, figure out the margins and the the spine width and all that stuff. So it is an order of operations that people have to understand for sure when doing these.
And all of this was learning by doing, and I will not share with you how many times I had to redo in the process of learning the process of operations. That's a perfect phrase. To get it done as efficiently as possible. I have a graphic artist in Colorado who's contracted to do 2 covers for my next 2 novels. And she said, so when do you need this? And I said, well, the first one won't come out until spring of next year. So you can start to come up with ideas. We can start to bat them around and get to something in time. And the next one, probably 9 months after that one. So I do have her working early, coming up with concepts. One of the decisions that you have to make down the line is whether or not you want a draft copy printed.
Those are the ones with not for resale, like printed physically across them, aren't they?
Yeah. And I now do that as a matter of course. One, for the obvious physical review, because I have found errors in draft printed copies. But also when I go to a book signing, I have little prop-up stands. And so I put the not for resale copies on the stands so that people aren't leaving their fingerprints and sometimes drool on the covers of books that I could otherwise sell.
That's a very interesting picture you just painted in my mind.
Well, I'm hoping they're drooling because they can't wait to get their hands on one to read. But it's obvious to them this is not the one that is for sale, and they don't mind as much if there are fingerprints on it or the glossy cover looks a little smudged because other people have touched it. So I get the draft copies, and it postpones things a little. I am frustrated that KDP will take pre-orders on ebooks, but they won't take pre-orders on paperbacks, at least the last time I looked. And I don't know why they differentiate. Do you guys know?
No, I'm just.
No, I didn't even realize that they didn't do that. I mean, I've never been a fan of pre-orders myself, just because of, you know, the fact that it doesn't, the way that it affects the algorithms. But you know, I definitely see the usefulness for it in some cases. But I don't know, paperbacks, maybe because there's such a long, the last time I did a paperback, I think it took almost a week before they approved it. So maybe because they know how much longer it takes for them to do the approval process, they don't want to risk that you would miss your pre-order date. I don't know.
It does seem weird, because surely they wouldn't even. Oh, I guess they wouldn't have to print anything unless it's on the day, except maybe if the author screws up and doesn't get their manuscript in time, which is always the thing when you do pre-orders. You've got to get your manuscript in on time, otherwise everything gets screwed up.
Yeah. Well, I've never taken a marketing course. I know eyeballs are important, but I try through social media to beat the drum for about a month before the book is scheduled to come out. And I like to see how many pre-orders there are for the ebook version, just to make me feel good. I mean, people are responding to the social media posts. And so there's this pending rush of orders that are going to go out. And I don't know if that affects Amazon's algorithms for sales or not. What I've been told is that picking the right search keywords is probably the most critical. And I am not an expert on that. I am a novice. Go ahead.
I was going to say, depending on your strategy for how you want to achieve success, the pre-order thing can be massive, because all of these people that you've spent weeks getting agreeing to buy the book. So whether it's like 10 of them or 50 of them or something, when the order goes through, when the book goes live, all of those orders get processed at the same time. So it looks like 50 people bought your book on the first day, which sends your book visibly in the rankings, which is
Did they change that? Because that's the opposite of how it used to work, which is why I was never a fan of it. It was the day the sale is made, the pre-order is made, you know, leading up to the release is when it counted as a sale, so that you could see your book ranking even in pre-order during the pre-order. But it meant that all those pre-orders, if you had 100 pre-orders, they all counted staggered throughout the pre-order process. So unless they've changed that recently, which they might have, that's not how it used to work.
Well, I better start researching to make sure that I'm not talking out of my backside.
Well, they might have changed it, but I know that was the issue, and that was one of the reasons why I was never a fan of the pre-orders, because I really thought that, you know, I'd rather get a few less sales on that one day by just sending it all out to, you know, on big release date and everybody coming and buying that day, than staggering it and having that the rankings affected by that. But they should have changed. They should change that. I've always thought that they should change that. Maybe they have. So you know, the other thing is, I was looking up why, and you know, this is sort of like speculation, but so they do have a scheduled release for paperbacks, which is different than a release date, where it's basically you choose a future date when the print book will become available, but it's not a pre-order. But they know that they can come on that release date or whatever. But they say one of the reasons is likely due to different fulfillment processes. So pre-ordering the digital print books would require, you know, different printing, shipping, and delivery logistics. So if everybody's, you know, queued it up for that one day, I guess it would cause them to scramble with their print on demand. I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I do know. So the last time in preparation for a book signing and sale, I ordered a dozen copies of my latest novel, Strikeout, the final book in the Creative Deductions detective epic. And the order was fulfilled through at least 2 different outsourced printing facilities that Amazon uses, because they showed up on different dates in different packages, as opposed to one package. So I can believe that the logistics for getting pre-orders out so that they ship on the date of release would be difficult. I buy that.
So much thought, isn't there? That has to go into these things.
Yeah. Okay, so any other sort of things that you've learned about, publishing on KDP?
So there's one horror story. Every discussion ought to have a horror story. One of my friends in a group that I call my ideation group. I don't write with them. I don't critique their work, but I go there and bounce ideas off of them, and they tell me if the ideas are good enough for a book. So I meet with them early. And he had written a nonfiction book based on his profession, and he had it formatted by a friend out in California. The friend didn't know Microsoft Word very well, and some of the examples in the book were text on a light blue square.
Oof.
And so he drew light blue squares in Word, and then he positioned the text on top of them. And that was fine until my friend and I sat down, and he realized that he needed to edit something in the text. And the minute he edited something, all of the light blue boxes, which had been hand placed below text, were out of alignment. Every one of them. And so it was my job, because we weren't going to send it back to California, to take out all of the blue boxes and then use Microsoft's capability to draw a blue box around the text that would float with the text. And so we did that. And it looked good on screen, and he printed a draft copy and got it, and the color we had picked showed up darker than on the screen. And so it wasn't easy to read the text that it was supposed to highlight.
Oof.
So I had to go back and choose another color for these 20 odd boxes for it to show up properly. That was something that I thought would have taken a half a day with him. Ended up taking at least 3 days.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people hire formatters, professional formatters, to just handle all that, right? I mean, obviously a lot of self-publishers, especially when you're getting started, you don't have the budget to do that. But I think as authors sort of get some income coming in and realize, the time involved in doing things like that, whether it's not their level of expertise versus they could just be writing another book and hire somebody else to do that. I think a lot of authors end up hiring people like formatters to handle stuff like that.
Yeah, he made the mistake of sending it to a friend who purported to have word processing skills. And there was a mismatch between the brag and the reality.
Well, I mean, you might know how to do it in Word in theory, but when it gets printed, you don't realize that there's all those things that change about it, right? Yeah. I think we're all sort of learning. I think self-publishers in general learn so much about the realities behind putting a book out, aside from just writing the book. I think when we get started, we all just think, I can write a book, and you write the book. And it's like, but that's just the start of the whole journey.
I tried yesterday to walk through the process. So I've got I always have a book to be coming out, and so I tried to put that into KDP, but it's not going to come out until next spring. And I tried to pick the scheduled release date, and I learned that you can only do that 30 days in advance. So I can't say 6 months from now I have a book coming out. KDP won't let me pass that screen. So that's something I learned within the last 12 hours.
In KDP's defense, being a writer and knowing many, many writers, getting a writer to actually stick to a commitment they make 6 months in the future is probably kind of a spurious guess. So maybe KDP is just like, hold your horses there. I'll trust you up to about 30 days. But after that, mate.
I understand.
I have a feeling that rule only applies to, self-published. Like I'm fairly certain I've seen release dates far greater than 30 days for traditionally published books. So I think that they probably have different rules depending on who it is that's publishing.
Well, in that mode, you've got the publishing house, which has leverage. You have the agents, which can be hands-on to the author, as in beating the author with a 2x4, to actually get the work done. So,
I think with a lot of traditionally published books too, it's so long between when the book is done and when it gets published that they already know it's done, and they've scheduled it for publication a year later. So they know that date is going to be hit. Whereas as self-publishers, I could finish the book today and publish it tomorrow, right? Yeah. Traditional publishers can never do that. So I think that's why they maybe trust them a little bit more, but not for a good reason, really. It's for a reason that's kind of annoying, and one of the reasons why a lot of people go self-publishing is they don't want to wait that long. But that's sort of built into that.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. My objective is one book a year, and I'm shooting for a target. Now that I've done a dozen, my next target is 20. And so if I am going to do one book a year, number one, I've got to work on more than one at a time and overlap them because of how long it takes from idea to knocking on KDP's door. But also, I don't want to be beholden to an organization that interjects or inserts delays in the process. If I went traditional, the last 8 novels might take me 20 years to get out. And I'm not sure I have 20 years left. So I want to put out quality products, one a year, and give people stories that will entertain them, will educate them, and make them think a little harder about the issues we all face.
Well, I mean, that's a great philosophy to take, isn't it?
Yeah, especially if you're writing children's books. It's nice to give the kids those kind of morals and philosophies these days. So, I mean, all these sort of tips and tricks are basically around, the paperback side of things. Do you have any advice for any of the non-paperback, or is it mainly that's what you're dealing with, so that process more than anything?
Well, KDP makes it real easy after you've said, okay, there's the paperback for you. They prompt you with, well, would you like to do this as an ebook? And I always say yes. But the process is different for the ebook, because I don't want hard pages. I want the buyer of the ebook to increase font size if they need to. So I have the table of contents, and that's fine. And there are tags on the chapter heading, so that's fine. And I will upload the latest edited Word document for the ebook. And lots of things have to change, because the layout of the beginning of the book with the title page with empty space and all those things don't work very well. So I will put it up there to take a look and see just how bad it is. and then I will go back and edit the Word document, a separate Word document. I didn't mention before, but when I'm going through changes of my manuscript as I'm bending to the will of KDP, each of those changes becomes a different version. So there's KDP paperback version 1 and 2 and 3. So I have a history of the progression. I also take a copy of that, and that's paperback 1 and 2 and 3. As I modify it to make the format of the Word document match up to how it ought to be in an ebook. In the ebook, they already have the front cover because I repurposed the front cover from the paperback into the ebook. But the ebook, they don't get the back cover. And I'm proud of my back covers. I'm proud of the blurb on the back, and I have some graphics on the back, and I don't want them to miss that. And so I will grab a copy of the back cover, and I will give it to them on a separate page. So they'll get the front cover, and they'll get, here's what the book is about, and the acknowledgement and all that. And before chapter 1, the back cover will be there so that they get the entire experience. Because I think that's important.
Yeah. I mean, you paid to have that done. You did all that work, and you might as well use it, right? Often people will put the same blurb in their description field as they will on the back cover, but sometimes it's different. So
I was going to say quite often it's different because you have so much less real estate to work with. You actually often have to trim like your blurb very small. I love doing the covers on paperbacks because sometimes you can have an image and it follows all the way around to the back as well. And so it really is, there's a certain amount of artistry that you can do with your covers when you have a print book that, as you said, gets lost completely with ebooks.
Yeah, Forward and Back has a graphic that I provided to the cover artist, which she used very effectively to go from the front across the spine and onto the back. So it carries the motif and the colors. And I like that.
Yeah, I think the artistry of a well-designed cover is one of the things that really helps sell a book. And so it's one of those things that really shouldn't be underutilized by authors because we always hear don't judge a book by its cover, but people really do. And the more you can show them on that is, I think, that way they'll see it on the look inside. I mean, it's nice that Amazon will link those two, the paperback and the ebook as well, so people can always see it by clicking through to the ebook and looking at the back cover there, or the paperback and looking at the back cover there. But not everyone does that, so it's really cool. I haven't heard of anyone else doing that where they're taking their back cover and putting it inside the book. It's a great idea.
So we're approaching the top of the hour, I think. But I was going to ask if you had maybe some final tip before we ask you where everyone can find your books. But if you had some final tips for anybody who's listening to this and they want to write a book and they want to publish a book and they've looked at Amazon, but maybe having paperback copies of their book is important to them. So any final tips and advice about how they can use KDP to make that happen?
Well, maybe I'll take that question up a little higher. I think that anyone who feels like they want to write a book ought to write it. I think lots of people have stories they want to tell or need to tell. But writing a book isn't simple. At least writing a well-crafted book, meeting some level of quality, isn't simple. And as I mentioned before, it takes me roughly 2 years from idea to telling KDP I have something to add to your shelf. So I urge people to use the following test. If the book captures your head and your heart, then you should go ahead and write it. Because if it's only in your head, and you get 6 months down the road and you don't have the emotional connection to the book, then it's much more likely you're going to give up and you will have wasted 6 months. So I want people to fully embrace the project with everything they have, and then they should go ahead and write that book.
Well, that's great advice. So I hope everyone who's listening to this or watching it on YouTube got inspired by that. And now comes the big question, Mike, where can these people who have just been inspired go and find your books? Well, I guess Amazon would be the place, wouldn't it?
Amazon is the place. So I have a shortcut URL to take them directly to my author page at Amazon. It is www.gerfnit, G-E-R-F as in Frank, N-I-T.com. And that will take people directly to my author page. They'll find 12 novels, 3 children's books, including that one middle grade book, and a collection of juried short stories that's republished from a local journal of arts and letters.
That is wonderful. Well, we will make sure to pop that link in particular into the description of this video. So if you want to go and check that out, just keep on scrolling down to the description and you'll see it. And as you pass, you will see that huge, big, empty comment box. So why don't you take a moment to write a comment for Mike to let him know how much you appreciated everything he shared with us today. And while you're down there, you could also click that like button, that subscribe button if you haven't already, and there's a little bell icon you can click on to get notified every time there is a new episode of Fully Booked, which of course there will be next week. So until then, cheerio.